Man, where have you gone? Please come back. This is the title of one of the articles this week in New York Times. And you know what? It was written by a woman who is in her 50s, which I actually think is the best person to write about things like this. And we'll break it down in just a second. It is quite a long article, so I took some notes. I know it's behind the subscription wall, I think, but I got a hold of it, and you know who actually originally posted it on Twitter? How I found out about it was, of course, the most prominent men's rights activist in America, Paul Elam, and I love his last name because it's male spelled backwards. Even though that's his real last name, and you can see him on my channel in multiple videos because we did this three-part interview, and now I've posted it. So it was written by a woman in her 50s, and it's about how men are disappearing from dating. And I'm one of those men who has disappeared from American dating scene because I moved here to Thailand, to Southeast Asia, more than 2 years ago. And I am a guy who always been in relationships. I consider myself a good man. I don't have any bad habits. I don't even drink alcohol. I don't have any kids. I have good income. And yet, all of that list that I checked and that has always gotten me into good relationships in the past just did no longer matter at all. So I decided I would move to a country where it still matters. So welcome to my live stream. I'm streaming live from Bangkok, Thailand. The best city in the world to live in. And I think a lot of you agree because this is the most visited city in the world in 2024. And I'm sure it will continue this year as well. I'm not that excited about it because, I don't really like tourists when I live here, but that's fine. So this is an important article, though I think it's missing some key reasoning, as a lot of times with women. So, let's break it down. But, let me, reminisce here a little bit, because even when I was leaving America, and I was in Houston, Texas. Before that, I was in Silicon Valley in California. I have already noticed that phenomenon when I would go to some of the lounges or clubs or bars or whatever. I've noticed that sometimes you would go there and the bar area would be all women. And I was like, whoa, like not only it's just nothing but women now, the men who are in the establishment don't really come up to these women. And because in good old days, when you go to a lounge, or again, like especially a club when you're younger, the atmosphere is all about the dating. It's all about men approaching women, women flirting with men. But all of it is kind of dead, that I've noticed even before I left. And more and more people tell me this, and I also know personally more and more men who are good men. These men would make great husbands and fathers, but these men are, essentially walking away from the dating scene, which is insane, which is really insane. And so, this article kind of talks about that, as this woman was sitting with a friend and noticing how a lot of people around her are now just single women, and sometimes by themselves. And it's interesting because I even see it here in Southeast Asia. I see so many single women. Now, the culture here is a little bit different, where just coming up to a girl and start flirting with her and exchanging numbers is not as appropriate as it is in Western cultures. But nevertheless, even here, the number of single women is staggering. But things are finally changing in the United States. And I guess one thing we do need to ask ourselves, do we want to be like Japan, where two sexes just don't even talk to each other? I was in Japan last year, and it's just fucking depressing. Women don't even try to look good or flirt, or just feels like they're just dead inside, and men have no interest in women. It's quite depressing. By the way, here's an article. Sorry, I forgot to put it on a screen. Not exactly a looker, but this is the article. And I think I'm very sure that there will be more and more articles like this and videos like this published in the mainstream media. Now, if you watch my channel, you've probably seen this many times when I do a reaction video to a woman in her 40s who's just realized that, oh man, I spent all my 20s, building a career, becoming independent, doing everything that Beyonce told me to do. And boy, am I lonely and single now in my 40s. I think you will see more and more and more of it, and you will see it going into the mainstream media. So, an interesting observation that she makes in this article is that, it used to be almost a status symbol. And I remember this. It used to be a status symbol to have a beautiful woman on your hand, right? And I was very proud of usually because, I dated, I think, very decent looking women. And, a good looking woman, especially a woman who knows how to carry herself, always makes you look better, right? I can actually argue any woman on your hand, it looks better, because whenever I'm out by myself, I get some looks, it's fine. But I get the most looks, and you gentlemen feel free to chime in here and let me know in the comment section. You know, we know that we get more looks from women when we already have a woman in our arm, especially if she's cute, because social proof is everything for women, right? If they see that another girl, especially good looking girl, found something in this man that she's with him, well, all of a sudden the value of that man goes up, even if he is good looking. This is a big deal, right? So it used to be a thing, and I know even by my, I was very proud usually that I was able to get good women next to me who were committed and loyal to me, and represented me very well. And in the last few, and I would look the same at other men, but in the last few years, I've noticed I don't care. I don't care for me to have a woman next to me, and I don't care for other men. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this much. When I see men, whether here or when I visit other countries, I look at the girl, and whether I see tattoos on her or nose ring, or I hear her talking loudly, or I hear her giving attitude to her boyfriend or husband, or worse, him carrying her purse. I already made a video about that. When I see that, to me, I feel sorry for those men. I go like, God, I am so happy to just not have that. Not being with a Western or westernized woman is just a blessing nowadays. A lot of people, tell me, it's like, Alex, you left America to go, for this traditional women and everything, so why aren't you married to one? And what you guys don't understand, it's a two-step, the benefits are twofold, right? The benefit number one, and honestly, that is enough for me, is just to get the fuck away from the Western women. When I see them here, or even sometimes I hear them, right? I'm like a fucking snake who can feel the vibration because they are quite up there, right? I can hear the Western woman talking, usually very abrasively and loudly, and disagree. So I feel like I'm just allergic to Western or westernized women. So now I'm like, oh God, thank God I don't have that. So the number one sort of a benefit getting out of America, getting out of a Western country, is to just be away from these women. I mean, how sad is that if you think about it, right? And then you pick your own benefits, right? If you just want to live your best life away from Western women and just be you can do that. You can date several women at the same time. That's what I chose for now. Or you can find a wife and have kids if you want. You have choices. That's, I think, what people don't understand is that men here have choices, and 99.9% of the time, and I lived here for over 2 years now, what men here choose are pretty much not to be with Western women, because we have Western women here who who live here for some reason, and they, I've already made multiple videos about how they are very upset that nobody really wants to wife them up. Nobody does. I very recently met a Western girl who actually got wifed up here by a Thai man, and this is the first one. I just out of, and I'm pretty social. I go out and I talk to people about dating, and I follow some the local social media here, like Westerners in Southeast Asia, whether it's Thailand, Philippines, Cambodia, whatever, and even when I dare to ask other men, like, hey guys, do you date other Western women, and it's just laughter. It's just laughter. And I'm one of those men nowadays. But I do experiments once in a while, because I would match with it. I don't really use dating apps that much, but even a match, or if I see a girl and I try to talk to a Western woman, boy, it becomes very, very quickly obvious how I don't want one. So and so it's a very interesting observation that she made, is that having a woman on your hand, even a beautiful woman, is just no longer a status symbol. The other thing that she mentions, and this is a quote: they filtered us out. She said they filtered us out. Men filtered women out, which is true, because, like, I used to just, when I matched with a girl on a dating site before even apps, or met one in person, I automatically assume that she has nothing but good intentions for us. If she gave me her phone number, that means that I will see her on a date, unless the conversation kind of goes wrong. If I see her on a date and it goes well, she would want to probably explore a relationship. But now you cannot assume any of that stuff. You actually have to assume that a woman is trying to do something disrespectful to you, or she's after your money, or some other agenda, right? So you have to filter women out. I do this all the time. The list of filters now I have for women went from 0 to like 100. And these are just basics. This is just to avoid being stood up for a date, or a girl not being presentable on a date, or girl, going after money, or getting free dinners or drinks and stuff like that. So, and then she's right. The writer of this article is right. We have filtered them out. And I would suggest that actually women filtered themselves out by their behavior. Now, I do want to mention, and this is something, if you watch my channel even for more than a second, that even though, I always, tell men, listen, you need to watch out for this behavior of Western women. At the end of the day, I blame men 100% of the time. We have allowed and sometimes even encouraged this type of behavior. The number of you guys who consistently throw money and compliments and simp in the most disgusting ways, you guys have made it happen and continue fucking it up for all of us, including yourselves. This is why things are broken. Now, again, I don't know where this is going to lead. Are we going to become Japan, or maybe women at some point, and men, really, it does need to start with men, decide that enough. Men will stop tolerating all the bullshit from women, and women will realize, like, okay, well, I think we better, go back to where we were attractive, and not just physically to men, attractive as wives, not just OnlyFans models. And another thing that she mentioned, and I wrote some stuff down. If you don't mind, I'm looking at my notes here. It says men are just not putting an effort anymore, and wanting to stay overnight to be human with a woman. Yeah, so she describes that even one night stands used to be more human, right? Yeah, you met, you maybe were tipsy and you had sex, but after that, you saw her as a human, and you stayed and watched TV and cuddled and took a shower together and stayed overnight and had breakfast, and it was a more of a human experience, where now men run away. They don't want to deal with anything beyond sex, right? And some don't even want to deal with sex. And I do have to say that I remember that, being in America, where I was like, oh, Jesus, now how can I get the fuck out of, how can I get her the fuck out of my apartment? Because, I just don't want to deal with all of the bullshit, So that's actually a quite interesting observation that she had. And it is true that, men nowadays, as when it comes to Western women, only see sex objects. And that's what women made themselves into, and some men don't even want to see that. They just completely, counted themselves out or decided to just, hire help with that one thing. And that's it. And it is pretty sad. Now, she has a message for men, and she says, "You're missed. We remember you. Come back." Now, this is very interesting because I wonder how many women actually, believe that. They would never say it. Well, some of them do. Some of them do say it. Now, these are usually women in their 40s and 50s. And in that case, a lot of men who, like me, like I'm in my 40s, late 40s, I go like, well, yeah, but where were you 10 years ago or 20 years ago when you were the most attractive? Where, um, sorry, I'm gonna go after 20 something year olds, but 20 something year olds still don't know what's going to happen to them, right? Because at 20, even 30 something year olds, they don't necessarily listen to women who are in their 40s and 50s and now, sort of ringing the alarms and bells. And a lot of times their mothers are still preaching, be independent, be, single, you don't need no man, men suck and all that stuff. So I wonder how many women actually do feel like, hey, listen, we need men. We do, like, we have a long life to live still, even when we're in our 40s and 50s. And, now men are not exactly lining up for us because, sorry to tell you, ladies, if you didn't know, but, your number one value to men, especially when you start dating and attracting men, is your youth and beauty. And, when they ask men, they show men a bunch of pictures of women and ask them, who you're most attracted to. Usually it's a girl who's 25, so I wonder how big that disconnect is between women who found out the truth, right? The women who were red pilled and realized that, oh my God, this whole thing in, of being independent and, listening to Beyonce and Taylor Swift and other con artists, all of that was not worth it. I would have rather be a good wife and have, by the way, all of that provided to me. If you're a good wife, you will, if you're good wife material, if you're a good woman, you will find a good man who will provide well for you. You don't need to have a career. But, then also on top of that, you won't be lonely. And it's another thing that women in their 20s and 30s don't realize is that, once it's over, it's over. Once it's over, it's over. It's different for us men, right? I can fuck around for another 10 or 20 years. And guess what? Again, I don't want to break terms of use here, but I can always solve my problem with money, if you know what I mean, right? Especially here in Southeast Asia. So women cannot, right? There are no services from men that would provide real emotional support, right? That's not something women can buy. And then once they hit, well, usually once they hit 30, but definitely when they hit 40s and definitely 50s, they just don't have any more sort of other options. And that's why they write articles like this, as they should. So I'm wondering, and I don't know the answer to that. Feel free to, let me know in the comments here in the chat, how many how how big of a gap do we have right now between women who are realizing this and women who don't? Obviously women who don't in their 20s and 30s, but will the voices of women in their 40s and 50s be loud enough? Will they be mothers who are preaching this to their daughters, saying, listen, don't be like me, don't be a boss chick, don't be an independent woman, don't be this argumentative, combative, and pretend like I don't need a man until I do. I mean, I got to tell you, the number of women that I meet, not just here in Thailand, not just all over the world when I travel, that are convinced that they don't need a guy. I'd see, sometimes I would look at the dating apps and I would see a girl in their 30s and 40s, and she would be like, I'm looking for a man who's this, and this, and this, and but I'm not in a rush. And I go like, oh my God, how can you be in your 40s and not be in a rush? You should have been in a rush 10 years ago. What where is this abundance of good men that you see that want you, that you think that you can have some extra time? This level of delusion can probably only be broken by two things. One is loneliness in cats and antidepressants when they're in their 40s, but that's too late. That's too late for them. That's too late for us, right? And the other one is, when they realize that when they're younger. And I wonder what it's going to take for younger women to see this coming. This does need to make into social media. Obviously, articles like this are good, but do women in their 20s and 30s read New York Times, right? This has to be in movie plots. This has to be on social media. And I'm actually, my most favorite, my most I just started my channels, right? My social media. So my channel is still pretty small. I had another channel before this with like 500,000 subscribers on TikTok, 175,000 on YouTube, 250,000 membership on Facebook. Like, I created pretty good social media in my previous, for my previous channel. But this one, I started from scratch, and still my most popular video till this day is on TikTok. And it's got more than 250,000 views, which is ridiculously high for a tiny little channel. And guess what? It is my reaction video to a girl who is in her 40s. She just turned 40, and she realized, my life sucks, and watch the video. I have it pinned on my TikTok profile. And but the incredible thing about that video is that as she realizes, and by the way, there's another one that I found out yesterday, and I already filmed it. So another one is coming up, and trust me, there will be more, because this is going to be a trend. This is just sad reality trend. But the amazing thing about that woman in her 40s, she decided that she's going to blame literally everybody but herself for the situation that she is in. She blamed her parents, she blamed her friends, I believe, and then she blamed her ex-boyfriends. So this incredible inability to take responsibility for their own actions is something that is the kryptonite for women. And the enablers of that are men, right? Men, unfortunately, and we call them simps, and I believe most of American men and European men in Western countries are simps nowadays. They enable this behavior because they never really hold women responsible for their actions. Even in that video that this girl, posted, there's still tons of men who are in their 40s going like, oh, I'll date you. Oh, I'll date you. Really? Why? Why would you date a woman who obviously has lived through her 20s and 30s and now starting her 40s, wants to take no responsibility for her bad decisions? And by the way, there were plenty good men in her life. I guarantee you, every woman, especially in her youth, has some good men on her way, and they dispose them left and right. And I think this is one of the biggest talents of modern women, is to dispose of good men. I was just in Kenya, and one of the most shocking things that I've kind of learned there is that, yes, Kenya is a country where English is one of the two main languages, so everybody speaks English. So all these women, and this only confirms my theory that this what I call the real virus. It infects women who speak English, right? Once they can have access to American social media and culture, once they listen to Beyonce's of the world and Taylor Swift's of the world and Billie Eilish, whatever that fucking idiot is with weird hair, whatever they're, what they're preaching, they get infected, right? Once they are able to talk to a bunch of simps from other countries who are sending them money and compliments and all of that stuff and gifts, there's no going back. So the real virus is transformed by understanding English. And so in Kenya, every girl speaks English. And what I've noticed is that, the attitude of Kenyan women was also, I don't need no man. And boy, do they need men. Unlike American women, Kenyan women are extremely poor. I mean, it's a poor country with a lot of people not having jobs, very few opportunities, very, some of these women basically could not even make it to the date because they have no money. They just have no money. And boy, these women can use a provider, right? And I'm not talking about gold diggers. Like gold diggers are going for Mercedeses and Porsches and other crap, right? I'm talking a provider who can feed you, right? Buy your health insurance, put a roof over your head that's not made out of fucking mud. They need men over there. And yet, the number of women who flaked on dates, just not show up, or even conversations, you know, it's incredible. And like in America, and even here in Thailand and Southeast Asia, these women, at least they feel like they have a lot of choices. They're not choices, right? They're just a bunch of guys who they don't want for good and bad reasons. But at least there's some sort of illusion, right? They open the dating app and boom, there's a bunch of guys. And even here, there's a bunch of foreigners, there's a bunch of rich Thai men who can absolutely, if you're a good looking woman here in Thailand, you can do way better than some blondes with big boobs in LA. And they know it. They absolutely know it. They're not all women, are horrible at picking good men, but they're really good at getting money out of simps. So it's kind of a double-sided, double-edged sword. So, but these, Kenyan women, unlike American women and even Thai women that can afford their own shit, they still acted like they don't need no man. It's incredible. It really is the poverty that I saw there, and a tiny, very small number of men who are either foreigners or educated, well-off Kenyan men was just tiny, and tons of beautiful black women. So it's so disproportionate. So it was absolutely unbelievable how this, dating culture, Western dating culture, just completely brainwashes the fuck out of women, where they can use a meal, a sandwich, and yet they don't show up. It's kind of like when they did those experiments in the, I think, 90s, where they would like go around and ask a bunch of homeless people and say, hey, listen, we'll give you a job to cut the grass, we'll provide the the lawnmower, just show up at like 8 o'clock, we'll pay you like $50 or whatever for the job. And like out of 10 homeless people, only one would show up, right? So it's kind of like that. It was incredible when I was in Kenya, because I realized that because I'm not like, to me, my goal is, what my goal is. It's, my channel is called the Million Man Project. I want to get 1 million of you guys out of America, out of those Western countries, into other countries of your choice, whatever you want, so you at least have an opportunity to be able to date traditional women, or at least be away from modern women that are just nothing but trouble and offer pretty much nothing in return for your kindness, for your love, for your providing, for doing your job, right? There's pretty much not even a basic respect in Western countries for men anymore. And you just have to look at The View once in a while, and you'll see that. How is that show still on the air? Anyway, but at the end of the day, I would love to see a reversal. I would love to see a reversal of behavior from women. And it is literally, because I get a lot of comments, especially on the Red Node, where like, oh, you just want a slave, right? You just want a slave. That's what you want, right? No, we don't want slaves. That's actually a lot of work to always, like, you want to control women. No, first of all, I don't. But secondly, isn't that a lot of work to control a woman? It's like having a child or a dog. No, thank you. No, thank you. I definitely want an experience with my girlfriend to be better than having an experience with a dog or a cat, right? This is another video that I've made. Is like, hey, is a woman that you're dating better than a dog? Is she just as happy to see you when you get home? You know what I mean? Does she give you peace? Just basic fucking things. And I got to tell you, most of your girlfriends and wives cannot beat a dog in terms of how much peace and quiet they provide to you. But I digress. So what will it take for women to reverse the course and, become feminine again, realize that careers are not everything, that being a trad wife actually is a much better deal, and that this is not slavery at all. This is just being a happy mother and a supportive wife to someone who loves you and provides for the family. Now, I don't just mean money. I mean good decisions, security, safety, and all that stuff, right? I mean, isn't that a great life? So I don't, I would love for that to happen. But again, it has to start with us, men. We need to stop allowing all of this bullshit that we've allowed throughout the last several years. And number one goal should be is to wake men up and say, no, 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 please don't behave this way. When you think you're being a gentleman, you think you're being a nice guy, but you're actually damaging your own chances, and overall you're poisoning the fucking pool, the dating pool. Majority of men don't even understand that. And even men who come here, I had a few men reach out to me and say, hey, I'm coming to Thailand, can you kind of show me around and teach me how to date here and the differences? And once they get here, I realize how simpy they are. And I tried to unpack it for them. I said, listen, you have to change your behavior. I know this is a much better dating scene and you have more choices, but these women don't want simps. If you're going to simp here, you're going to get the same type of a girl here as you did in America. The women who actually want a real man do not want a simp. So you have to change. And out of like 4 men that I've worked with in the last year here, I could not fix any of them. One of them married the first girl who actually winked at him, and now and spent a bunch of money on. They like literally purchased her, and now has basically purchased the entire family, and just moved them and started paying for the entire family. Even her nieces just fucking another one consistently led with money, consistently was dishing over money, and then was wondering how come these women leave as soon as he stops, and on and on and on. So as I talk about this delusion that modern women are in, men are in a very much same type of trouble with just a different type of a delusion. And a different type of delusion is how simpy these men are, and how difficult it is to red pill them, to say, don't do this. Don't start paying and dishing out money to a woman right away. Make something out of yourself. Like I always give this as example. The classic simping is coming up to a girl in the bar and say, can I buy a drink? I know these are the classics and we were all told to do this and say this, but if you break that down, you know that essentially what you're saying is that, listen, I'm such a fucking loser and I have so little to offer to you that the only way you should stick around is if I pay for your time with a drink, it's and that and everything is built on that, right? Pay for my taxi, pay for my nails, pay for this and that, for the date. And men gladly do it. Sometimes women don't even have to ask. Man was like, oh, do you want me to pay for your Uber? Let me Venmo you like $50 for your nails or whatever, or just so you have for your morning coffee. Men do this almost voluntarily, and that is the problem. Men need to realize, no, improve yourselves. Make sure that you present yourself to a woman as a man who has a lot to offer, even in just a conversation, right? What I always suggest is come up to a girl and start talking to her. So from the very second of her talking to you, she can see that this conversation is going to be interesting. There's going to be some flirting and tension. And this guy's not just going to like, oh, you're so pretty and not into everything that I say and agree with me. No, this is going to be an interesting conversation. Offer her that. Don't offer compliments and money. We can all do that, honestly. Everyone's got an extra $20 to buy a girl a drink or $100 to buy her dinner, and compliments are free, right? Everybody can. You just throw in yourself what I call it as a dog bucket, right? When you go fishing, there are 2 buckets, right? One is for the family, you catch good fish, and another one is for little fish and crawdads that's been thrown for the dogs, right? Don't be thrown in that bucket of shit, that's for the dog. Be interesting. And if you're interesting, she won't require you to pay for her time. And by the way, when you do end up paying for a woman's time, there's a word for it, right? You're essentially hiring a hooker. If you're paying a woman of any type of money or compensation, if you're giving her any type of compensation in order for her to spend her time with you, you're making her into a hooker or just hiring one that already existed, and why? If you genuinely want a genuine relationship of any kind, from one night stand to marriage and everything's in between, why would you want to do any of that with a hooker? And if you do, then hire one. And don't go to a bar. There's a bunch of streets and websites for that, right? I mean, I can argue that majority of Western women are prostitutes of some sort, right? Most of them require some payments for their time. And the number one sort of madams of that, are dating apps like Tinder and Bumble, because it's perfectly fine. You can create a profile as a woman and say, "Oh, I'm a sugar baby." Well, what's a sugar baby? It's a girl who requires literally monthly payments to be with a guy, right? Subscription prostitution. And that's perfectly A-okay with Tinder and Bumble and many other websites. But if you, for example, confront a girl on that, but I know a lot of guys would confront a girl saying, "Hey, listen, why the fuck did you answer 3 days later? I'm not interested in this kind of shit. You're busy. Okay, go be busy. I don't date busy women," right? If you in any way offend the woman by confronting her shitty behavior, you will get your account banned. So because Tinder and Bumble, they live off of men paying women money for their services. It's kind of a prostitution apps. This is why my phone does not have Tinder or Bumble installed, no matter which country I go to, and definitely not here in Thailand. So yeah, I'm definitely was, when Paul posted this, I definitely was happy to see an article like this, even though the writer doesn't really go into why this is happening in the society. She's just basically saying, yeah, men are leaving, they're disappearing, and women do still want men, because men can fill their needs with something they can just pay for, right? Or a Pornhub, right? .com. Women can't. That's because we're different. Women cannot hire or have an alternative sort of activity for what they want from men. And sooner or later, they recognize it. And unfortunately, it's quite late in their 40s and 50s. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, by the way, I'm going to be posting to, that video with another 40-something-year-old. At least she seems like she's in her 40s in the video. And another sort of, I regret doing this, I regret becoming a boss chick, and so forth. And by the way, if you are interested in, if you're a man who lives in, in any of the Western countries, including America, right here, themillionmanproject.com. This is where I outline every single step of the way, including what a traditional woman is, because a lot of you guys don't even know. And I just did a live stream about it last night. And how to pick the right country, how to move here, how to do trial runs, how to create your new life here. Because, I mean, for me, not only my dating life is a million times better here, but my life is better. My healthcare here is better. The health of the food is better. There's, not being always, potentially victim of a crime is better. People are kinder. I think weather is much better. It's just, my life is just, the quality of my life has skyrocketed as I moved here. And I'm talking about like stuff that does not have anything to do with dating. So, it is an amazing life. And, Thailand is for me, but, there's Cambodia and Vietnam and Philippines, and there's also Colombia and even some African countries. I personally do not want to go back to Kenya and probably Africa anytime soon, but there are some guys who live there, and, like, I love black women. It's just, Kenya is just not for me. Even then, I'd rather definitely live here. As a matter of fact, every time I visit another country, I confirm for myself that for me, Thailand is the best. And I've already made videos about that as well. But like I said, it for other people, other countries are the best. And this is in my course, I help you guys pick whichever country suits you, because a lot of guys show up here or other countries and they're like, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. They try to date in the same way how they dated in their countries of origin, and that doesn't work. It just never works. So there's a lot to be learned here, and you can learn on my experience rather than making your own mistakes. And like some guys that I know, they make mistakes that they cannot kind of get out of anymore. There are plenty of shitty women here, just as there are in many other parts of the world. There are less of them here than in America, that is full of them. But if you behave the same way as you were taught over there, you will end up dating the same type of women. And I encourage you not to, or just don't move here. Just continue doing whatever it is that you're doing in America or another country if you're happy with that. So check out the article. I will try to link it. No, I'm not going to link it because it is behind their subscription pay site, and I hate doing that to you guys. But essentially, I gave you the gist, and I hope I see more articles like this. Let me know in the comment section if you agree and what it is that you think is going to happen with the dating situation as both sexes are kind of going their own ways like this. Do you think it will continue and be essentially what it is in Japan now? Or do you think at some point men will start going this way, by demanding respect, and then women will oblige and kind of will get back to what dating really should be, where, everybody realizes that both sexes need each other and there's no other way around it. I did make other videos about how, once AI reaches the levels where men may no longer need women for sex, that would be much harder for women to negotiate and bargain and come back to the table and bring men back to the table. But I can already see that, if you plug most of your conversations, here's a challenge for you guys. If you plug most of your conversations on a dating app or just with a girl that you're seeing, if you plug the same conversations into a ChatGPT, you will see that ChatGPT will be kinder and more empathetic to you than the woman. And so I can see that even in the next few years, because that technology is almost here, is where guys will start having virtual girlfriends. Because right now, a lot of guys, and I live here in Thailand and I see this all the time, guys from other countries essentially start talking to Thai women, and they're not necessarily able to get here, right? And they may even meet this women for 1 or 2 weeks, but their relationships are online fantasy relationship. Except for this fantasy relationship will be with an AI girl. An AI woman is not that hard to program. Like ChatGPT does a pretty good job already. You can literally tell ChatGPT, please act like my girlfriend. And, and it will do a much better job than the majority of Western women. So that is already there. You can absolutely AI generate a girl that you like. I mean, you probably, if you watch my videos, you see a lot of my B-roll is AI generated. And sometimes I just have some fun with it. I will generate a girl that I personally would like, and, I would say, I would generate a beautiful Thai woman, right? And I was like, oh, boom, that one, right? So that is not even a problem anymore. And so I believe a lot of guys first will settle for just an emotional, good, peaceful relationship with an AI, a girlfriend. And, at some point, the robotics, the humanoid robots, will make it all the way to your living rooms and bedrooms. And then, like I said, at least now we do want women for sex, right? We need it. But if we don't, that is going to become a problem for our real relationships, and obviously repopulating the planet and many other things. So I would encourage women to come back to the reality and how things used to be sooner rather than later, because I think the clock on that is definitely ticking. So, all right, thanks for watching me. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here in Bangkok, Thailand. And I've been trying to stream every day. So I should be back tomorrow night. See you guys later.